Hello everyone, Weather Jamaica here. Welcome to this updated video on the weather across Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean. It is Wednesday evening, May 8th, 2024. Now before we jump into it, please ensure that you guys like the video so that the YouTube algorithm knows that you guys really fancy this type of content so that they can push it out to more weather lovers out there. Feel free to also share the video with your friends, relatives, church, brethren, whoever it may be, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Also, leave a comment down below letting me know what the weather's been like in your area recently. Feel free to also ask any weather related question that you might have about the future of the weather in your specific area. Alright, so let us take a look at the surface map of the Atlantic for this evening. We can see that the entire Atlantic basin is still being dominated by that ridge of high pressure that we all know is responsible for sending all of the easterly trade winds across the main development region into the Caribbean. And if we take a look at the visible satellite images of the Atlantic before the sun went down, we can see that yes, we have that low level flow of clouds pushing those, well, being pushed by the flow of winds from the east, all courtesy of the ridge of high pressure. You can also see some upper level clouds being blown off towards the northeast aloft, all courtesy of the wind shear coming off of the activity across sections of the eastern Pacific, sections of Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia. There's a lot of thunderstorm activity taking place down in the intertropical convergence zone. Lots of low pressure bubbling up. So thunderstorm, 'tis the season. These things are expected, especially considering that the eastern Pacific hurricane season is going to be starting soon. So there's definitely going to be some amount of activity popping up. Even although this year's forecast to become a La Nina, we are still wrapping up El Nino as we speak. So there's definitely going to be some amount of activity taking place across the eastern Pacific. Alright, so we'll be talking more about the rest of the Caribbean weather later on. Let us focus our attention on the prediction that was made in yesterday's video about the weather across Jamaica for today, Wednesday, May 8th. It was stated that we would have received some amount of rainfall during the afternoon across sections of some eastern, central, and western parishes in Jamaica, and especially southern parishes more than northern parishes. And just for your information, eastern parishes, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Surrey. So Portland, St. Thomas, Kingston, and St. Andrew. Central parishes, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Middlesex. So St. Anne, St. Mary, Manchester, Clarendon, St. Catherine. While western parishes, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Cornwall. So St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Hanover, St. James, and Trelawney. While when we're talking about southern parishes, we're talking about Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, Manchester, Clarendon, and even sections of St. Catherine, Kingston, and St. Andrew, as well as St. Thomas. And what ended up happening? As early as 4:40 a.m., a post was made on our Twitter page at Weather Jamaica. Keep in mind that these posts aren't only made on our Twitter page, but on our Instagram page at weather.jamaica, on our TikTok page at Weather Jamaica, and on our Facebook page at Weather Jamaica 876. So if you have one of those social media platforms, please ensure that you follow us there, as we make posts throughout the day that we don't make here on our YouTube platform that you can't afford to miss. So we posted the Cuban Doppler radar images at 4:40 a.m. And if you remember yesterday's video, we highlighted the fact that there would have been some amount of showers affecting the waters around the island, and that some of these showers might have meandered on land. And that was exactly what took place. Even although we didn't put it in the forecast on our other social medias, we did mention it in yesterday's video, and we had that rainfall as represented by the greens, especially across sections of St. Mary and Portland. The greens represent anywhere from light to some moderate rainfall, even some yellows in there that represent heavy rainfall at that. So that indeed confirms that forecast. What about the afternoon? Another post was made at 1:06 p.m. highlighting the visible satellite image that was posted, and it showed cloud cover across sections of the island. And where exactly? Eastern, central, and western parishes in Jamaica. So more so some inland areas of those parishes, so sections of northern or northwestern St. Thomas, southern Portland, sections of Kingston and St. Andrew, St. Catherine, sections of Manchester, northern St. Elizabeth, southern St. James, southern Trelawney, as well as sections of southern Hanover and northern Westmoreland. So that was just 1:06 p.m. That was when it was starting. But what about later in the day? So about 4:45 p.m. we saw the visible satellite images were posted again, and the images were posted this time showing the cloud cover across eastern, central, and western Jamaica bubbling up. We even had some sparkling yellow dots, one or two across sections of Manchester and St. Elizabeth, that we know indicate some lightning flashes, if not lightning strikes. So we definitely had some amount of activity. Some areas got some isolated showers, some areas didn't. We even had one of our commenters on our YouTube page, that's Florence Marsh 1374, posting her comment 6 hours ago. 6 hours ago, that's about 1 after 1 p.m. She stated, "Yes, indeed, we're having a big outpour in St. Thomas at this time. Sweet. I appreciate your comment, Florence Marsh." So that indeed confirms the rainfall that we saw in the satellite images. And if we even take a look at See Jamaica's YouTube channel, if you don't know by now, we have a partnership with that YouTube channel. They show live streams of Halfway Tree, Crossroads, as well as the Kingston Harbor. And at about 1:23 p.m., the live camera was showing that we were having some amount of isolated showers across Halfway Tree. We saw persons walking with their umbrella, that person right here covering her head. And we can also see, if we look closely, some cars right here with their windshield wipers on. So I guess they had some amount of light rainfall. I am sure persons were grateful that the temperatures were being cooled down at that time. So that indeed confirms the rainfall during the afternoon at that time. If we even take a look at the visible satellite images of Jamaica before the sun went down, we can see where we had that buildup of clouds across the island. We didn't have much in the way of thunderstorm activity or cumulonimbus clouds with those high cold clouds being blown off to whichever direction. But we saw that we had more so low level to mid level clouds that brought some amount of isolated showers. And we also saw that by the end of the run, most of these clouds were starting to dissipate. And if we take a look at the infrared satellite images, we can see it even better. Most of the whites, or the grayish white or milky colors that we saw, are actually dissipating to make way for some clear skies tonight. Taking a look at the Cuban Doppler radar images, the latest images are not showing much of anything across the island. But some persons might be wondering, what about all of these colors that we're seeing across the island of Jamaica? That's actually what we refer to as ground clutter. That is a glitch on the Cuban Doppler radar image. This is why we have to match the satellite images to the Doppler radar images. So if we see the clouds in a certain area, we can actually match it to the rainfall. But we know that there's not much happening right now across the island, especially considering that the clouds are dissipating. So all of this is ground clutter. Nothing is really happening. There's no rainfall. There's no severe weather. We know the reds and even the purples represent some severe weather. Nothing of the sort is happening. Hopefully, the Jamaican radar is sorted out as soon as possible. We don't experience that kind of ground clutter on the Jamaican radar at all. Alright, so let's just take a look at the temperatures right now. We can see that we have 27 degrees Celsius in Montego Bay, 27 degrees Celsius in Kingston, and by about 4 a.m. on Thursday, temperature should dip down to about 24 degrees Celsius in both Montego Bay and Kingston. As it relates to the temperature forecast for tomorrow, this map from the GFS is showing 18°C on Thursday. When you calculate that, that's 1 p.m. on Thursday. And we see Jamaica embedded in some yellows and some orange colors that we can see by the key on the right that represent 1 to 2 to even 3 degrees Celsius above normal temperatures. And we actually remember that the normal temperatures for the month of May across Jamaica are about 89 degrees Fahrenheit. And if we take a look at the thermometer, 89 degrees Fahrenheit right here is about the same as 31 degrees Celsius. So if we should be receiving up to 3 degrees Celsius at most for Jamaica's temperature on Thursday, it should be anywhere between 31 and 34 degrees Celsius at most. As it relates to the dry air map, we can see that yes, although we have some dry air across sections of the Caribbean, it's not that drastic. We know the dry air is represented by what we see on the key on the bottom. The low end of the scale in terms of dry air is represented by the yellows. Then we get up into the intensity when we step into the oranges, the reds, and the whites within those reds. And we don't see much of that significant dry air across the Caribbean at all, especially with all of the troughing still taking place, all of the upper level flow, very moist atmosphere actually taking place across the Caribbean, which explains the rainfall that we've been receiving for the past week, especially across the northern and northeastern Caribbean, where there have been some reports and even video footage of flooding coming out. As it relates to the Saharan dust forecast, this map is actually showing 2 p.m. on Thursday, and we see that we have the browns to represent the Saharan dust stretching all the way from Africa across the eastern to the central and western Caribbean. Jamaica is right here. We're actually on the top edge of the Saharan dust. We're not getting in on the Saharan dust as yet because most of it is pushing towards Central America. We're grateful. Hopefully it doesn't bend towards the north and affect us. We don't want to see the hazy skies. We don't want our asthma or sinusitis or respiratory illnesses to be triggered at all. Hopefully all of the Saharan dust clears out as soon as possible, because we know it's definitely affecting sections of the northern portions of South America, the eastern Caribbean, and Central America as well. As it relates to the wave forecast for tomorrow, we see that both maps from the Euro and the GFS are showing more so in the way of those lighter shades of blues on the west side of the island, those darker shades of blues on the east side of the island. And we know from what we see on the key on the bottom right, the lighter shades of blues represent anywhere from 0 to 0.5 meter wave heights, while the darker shades of blues represent anywhere from 1 to 1.5 meter wave heights. And all of this is due to the fact that the winds are not going to be that strong at all. We see a mixture of those bluish greens, those blues, and those slightly brighter shades of greens that we can see by the key on the bottom right that represent anywhere from 5 to 10 to even 15 knot winds. And we see the general direction on both the north and the south coast across the island should be coming in from the east, kind of bending to the northwest across the south coast, kind of bending from the north on the north coast. Either way, where does all of this air pile up? We see the blues, where we're going to be having the least amount of wind across sections of some inland areas of the island again. So we might have those cumulus clouds becoming mid-level rain clouds, or even making it up to cumulonimbus status, and then get that upper level wind blowing all of that off towards whichever direction it's blowing tomorrow. Which direction is it blowing tomorrow? Let's have a look. So this map is valid from the GFS for 18Z on Thursday. When we calculate that, that's 1 p.m. on Thursday, and we see the upper level winds right there bending across the island, coming in more so from a northwesterly direction. So it could favor some of that afternoon isolated shower activity across sections of some southern parishes if the thunderstorms are being blown off towards this, or if thunderstorm clouds are actually formed. So those high cold cloud tops could be blown off towards the south coast of the island, definitely. But the winds, as stated, seem to be bending more from the southeast. So who knows? More of that cloud cover could be, formulating across the northern portions of the island when all of this air is piled up more than on the southern portion of the island, if you're understanding what I'm saying. Remember, it's the low level flow that causes the low level clouds to be building during the daytime heating hours of the day. And if all of these low level clouds build up wherever we have the least amount of winds, which could be across the north, especially considering the winds are bending towards the northwest across the island, if you look closely, it could be affecting more so in we have some northern parishes. Then we have those high cold cloud tops blowing the we have the wind shear blowing the high cold cloud tops off towards the south and the east. I hope you guys are understanding what I'm saying. Hope you guys are following. But that's just the weather for you. If we actually take a look at the rainfall forecast now. So we don't see much in the way of rainfall for the morning hours, so I didn't show those maps. What I'm showing actually is the rainfall forecast for 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is actually 3 p.m. Jamaica time. What do we see? We see the blues represent rainfall across the same spots that we had it today, Eastern, Central, and Western Jamaica. But we actually see more of a bias with more of the darker shades of blues across northern parishes in Jamaica. And that's the GFS. This is the Euro. We'll see exactly what unfolds. The Euro is more inclined to believe that Eastern, Central, and Western parishes are going to be getting rainfall equally. GFS more inclined that yes, Eastern, Central, Western parishes, but more so on the North Coast. We'll see exactly what unfolds. We know these forecasts aren't set in stone, but we have to look at them, especially when both of them are showing something similar and the times are similar. So we could get in on some more rainfall, something similar to what happened today, but more so on the North Coast than on the South Coast. That's according to the GFS. Euro equally on both coasts. Either way, both accumulated precipitation forecast maps from the Euro and the GFS are showing that there's some amount of rainfall in the forecast for the island between now and 10 p.m. on Thursday. This map from the Euro is showing up to 0.6 of an inch of rainfall, especially right there near St. Elizabeth, even up to 0.49 of an inch of rainfall near Kingston and St. Andrew. GFS showing up to 0.54 of an inch of rainfall across Kingston and St. Andrew, and up to 0.77 of an inch of rainfall across that area to the north of Manchester, across southern Trelawney. That's where the most rainfall is going to be picked up within the next 24 hours. We'll see exactly how that goes. We see the consistencies, we see the differences, we see the comparison, we see the contrast. We just have to see how it actually goes, and most time these maps are accurate. Either way, we'll take all the rainfall that we can get. We're in the month of May. We're in our secondary rainy season. We usually receive up to 213.05 millimeters of rainfall during this month. That is almost 9 inches of rainfall, considering that 1 inch of rainfall is actually 25 millimeters of rainfall, and all of this is in millimeters. So we'll take all the rainfall that we can get before we head into another dry period. We don't want to see July at all. July is usually dry. Hopefully it brings some more rainfall this year. Alright, so that's it for the forecast across Jamaica. Let us focus our attention on the rest of the Caribbean. So as stated, we still have the clouds associated with the trough, bringing some amount of rainfall to sections of the northeastern Caribbean. We definitely saw some video coming out of the Dominican Republic recently showing a lot of thunderstorm activity, bringing severe flooding to some areas of that country. We also see that we have some amount of rainfall still plaguing sections of Puerto Rico, the Leeward Islands getting in on the mix. We also see a lot of thunderstorm activity firing up across sections of Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, as well as sections of Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname, and French Guyana as usual. If we take a look at the Doppler radar images of the northeastern Caribbean from earlier today, we can actually see where we've been having that rainfall throughout today. So we can see that Puerto Rico definitely got some amount of rainfall starting from about after 1 today, especially western Puerto Rico. We see these yellows and reds, some heavy rainfall that might have triggered some isolated flash flooding. We can also see that rain band right here that's exiting and pushing up towards the east from Antigua and Barbuda. Some amount of rainfall right there across section of Guadeloupe. The US and British Virgin Islands might have gotten in some amount of rainfall as well. If we even take a look at the Barbados radar, we do see some isolated pockets of rainfall, nothing affecting Barbados right now, but some rainfall definitely passing by, especially to the south and west of the island. One little rain band right here, some few dots of rain bands right here to the east of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, some rain bands right here to the northeast of St. Lucia, and we can also see that rainfall that we mentioned that we saw on the other Doppler radar images, showing that rainfall across sections of Guadeloupe and Dominica. As it relates to the wider view of Doppler radar images, you can see that rainfall that we mentioned on the satellite images. So we saw them on the satellite images for sections of Colombia, as represented by these green, sections of northwestern Venezuela, as well as sections of French Guyana too. Let us take a look at the temperatures for tomorrow. So looking at the Caribbean, we see the yellows, we see the oranges for majority of the Caribbean. So they should be getting in on anywhere from 1 to at least 3 degrees Celsius above normal temperatures. But look where we see these reds and these blacks. They represent even up to what? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 degrees Celsius above normal temperatures across sections of Mexico, the Gulf of Mexico, Central America, not to mention sections of the central and eastern United States getting in on the mix. But we can see that northern South America should be getting in on a mixture of those grays and the yellows to the oranges that represent anywhere from average to at least 3 to 4 degrees Celsius above normal temperatures in some spots. As it relates to the Saharan dust forecast for 2 p.m. on Thursday, we can see the browns represent the Saharan dust stretching all the way from Africa across the main development region into the Caribbean. And we see that it's definitely going to be plaguing the eastern to the central Caribbean tomorrow, as all of this pushes towards the east to the west. So the Leeward Islands, the Windward Islands, section of northern South America including Colombia, Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname, French Guyana, and even section of Nicaragua should continue to get in on those hazy skies. Try to take your meds, because the Saharan dust can cause respiratory illnesses in some persons. As it relates to the wave forecast for tomorrow, we see that both the Euro and the GFS are in consensus that we're going to be getting in on these blues that represent what we see on the key on the bottom right. The lighter shades of blues to the darker shades of blues, 0.5 meter to at least 1.5 meter wave height. And that is because the winds, as both the Euro and the GFS are showing, are not going to be that strong at all. We see more of a mixture of those bluish greens up to the brighter shades of greens that we can see by the key on the bottom right, that represents anywhere from 5 to 10 to even 15 knot winds, gusting to 20 knots in some spots. And we see the general direction from the east curving as usual to the north as we head into the Gulf of Mexico. As relates to the rainfall forecast now, both of these maps from the Euro and the GFS are showing all the rainfall that's expected from now up until 10 p.m. on Thursday. Not saying that's going to be raining from now all the way up until then, but these are the areas that are going to be picking up the rainfall. We see the consensus on both the Euro and the GFS models. And where do we see the rainfall? So we definitely see that more rainfall is in store for sections of Dominica, Guadeloupe, sections of the Leeward Islands. So Anguilla, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Martin, St. Kitts and Nevis, the US and British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, Haiti, sections of southeastern Cuba, and Jamaica should still get in on some more rainfall within the next 24 hours. If they're not already getting that rainfall right now, it's definitely coming before 10 p.m. on Thursday. You can also see some rainfall in store for sections of El Salvador, southern Honduras, sections of western and even eastern Nicaragua. You can also see some rainfall in store, but let me change this to black, for sections of Costa Rica, Panama, sections of Colombia, Venezuela, more so western and southern Venezuela than northern and eastern Venezuela. We see that rainfall for sections of Guyana, Suriname and French Guyana too. And the thing is, we see that both the Euro and the GFS are in consensus with this. And we know that when they're in consensus with this, the chances of it actually happening are much higher. Alright, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching.